This is a test. This is a test.
We were going to give him a big welcome.
Steve, you're out there? Steve Rhodes?
He has not joined yet. I will let you know when if either Tina or Stephen join.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. Next on the docket is the invocation. So everybody just bow your heads briefly. Father God, we ask you for your guidance and thank you for your love and mercy as we make decisions in regards to the town of Apex. Guide our decisions. Give us the wisdom we need to make the decisions necessary. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, and Tina Sherman has just joined.
All right, great. Thank you, Tina. Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Ask you all to just stand and we will salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice
for all.
A couple of quick messages as the participants will be muted initially. Roll call has been taken. While the presentations are occurring, we will mute all lines except the presenter to help with audio quality. When we get the questions and the discussion points, I will indicate that the floor is open for any comments or discussions. At any time, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask a question or to make a comment. The chat box should not be used to discuss an item during the meeting, but may be used to note technical difficulties so staff can assist you. Please state your name when you unmute before you make a comment or ask a question so that the group knows who is speaking and the minutes can be documented correctly. If a voting member of the board logs off, we will pause briefly to allow time for him or her to reestablish connection. This will help us to avoid having to repeat information. Any questions from the board members? I'll take that as a no. Public attendees who are listening, written public comments for this meeting were allowed to be submitted via email, mail, or delivery up to 24 hours prior to the start of this meeting. Diane, do we have any items of information?
We do. Before I speak on those, I wanted to have Amanda check to make sure that this meeting notice went to Stephen Rhodes. I'm not seeing him in the invited list.
It should have been, but as part of the all planning board, but I will double check that.
Okay, thank you. So my first item of information is in regard to an item that you all considered at the October 11th, 2021 Planning Board meeting. And that was in regard to 21CZ 17, which was the 1010 Center Business Park. And they asked for a delay because the fall zone study on the tower that's out there was not complete at the time. It is still not complete today, but in error, they asked for and you all granted an extension to the meeting today, which is more than 60 days out, and the UDO only allows a 60-day continuance. So we will start all over once they are ready with their fall zone study, but I wanted to mention it in case there were any listeners who were curious about that item. And then the second item of information is actually to introduce Mr. Rhodes, which I'll go ahead and do that in hopes that he'll be here today. And if not, he will join us at our next meeting. And so I did forward this to you all so that you could see it, but Mr. Rhodes is a North Carolina native. He's been in Apex for the past 20 years. He's a regional sales and marketing manager for Dominion Energy and has over 20 years of energy experience covering industrial and residential projects. He's also a member of the Raleigh Chamber Board of Advisor. He has a bachelor's degree in business management from Appalachian State University and a master's degree in business administration from Pfeiffer University. He's been married to his wife, Amanda, for nearly 20 years and has 2 children who attend Apex Middle School. One attends Apex Middle, the other attends Apex High School. And so he's excited about this opportunity to serve on the planning board. And so I know I saw several of you email him to welcome him to the group. I appreciate you all doing that. And that is all I have for today.
All right, and Stephen Rhodes has just joined the meeting.
Welcome, Stephen.
Stephen. All right, to the public comment section. For public comment period, any non-public hearing item, including new business items that appear in this agenda. Staff, do we have any public comments for the public comment period?
We did not receive any.
All right. So I guess we'll move on then to the items of consent. Item 1, minutes from December 13th, 2021 regular meeting. Anything we want to discuss there? Possible motion?
It's Mark. I make a motion that we approve it as it was distributed.
Mark has a motion. Do we have a second?
Tim Royal will second.
Thank you, Tim. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This will need to be done by roll call as a reminder.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, Reggie Skinner, aye. Mark Steele,
Aye.
Tina Sherman. You got your hand up and the thumb up. Okay, does that suffice, Amanda?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, Tim Royal,
Aye.
Sonny Pate,
Aye.
Keith Braswell,
Aye.
Ryan Akers,
Yes.
Elaine Boyle,
Aye.
Jeff Hastings,
Non-voting.
Stephen Rhodes.
Aye.
Unanimous, passes. All right, moving on to public hearings. Item number 1, we will hear from Shelley Mayo in regards to a possible motion regarding rezoning case number 21 CZ 28, retreat at Cedar Crossings PUD.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just checking to make sure that you can hear me.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to give you an idea of where we are, the Cedar Crossing PUD is located very close to our westernmost area of town. It's just north of Olive Chapel Road, where it intersects with New Hill Olive Chapel. It is south of the approved Deer Creek Master Subdivision, which was recently completed. The retreat at Cedar Crossing is about 36.5 acres, and the applicant is proposing an amendment to their existing planned unit development conditional zoning, so that your existing development is PUDCC, and the new zoning will also be PUDCC. The 2045 land use map designates this as low density residential, and the rezoning is consistent with that. So as some of you may recall, the retreat at Cedar Crossing is an age-restricted subdivision, so it's a 55 and up subdivision. During construction, the developer decided that they would actually like to amend the PUD in order to provide a more age-appropriate amenity. So the town's Unified Development Ordinance requires a play lawn for any subdivision that has 50 units or more. And there were some minor engineering issues, but in addition, the developer also really would have wanted to include something that was a little bit less just a straight flat play lawn area, and wanted to amend that to provide some alternatives to this. So that's generally what this first section shows. Item 1 is simply to amend the PUD to allow that in lieu of the play lawn requirement. Also, at the time that this was submitted, they were almost done with their public greenway trail construction, but it looked like it would be slightly further out, and they are only allowed, the existing PUD only allows them to construct or obtain building permits for 25% of the lots allowed in the subdivision before they're supposed to have all of that done. Parks and Recreation is actually the one who suggested condition number 2, which allows them to pull and obtain 50% of the building permits for the subdivision. So instead of the greenway being done at being required to be done at 25%, it's being required to be done at 50%, is the proposal. And then condition number 3 is because of an issue that was discovered in December for lot 37. Building permits were approved in error and in violation of an architectural condition from the original zoning case. One of the options there were a couple of different options to correct the issue, but this is the most expedient, and we already had an amendment proposed for the first portion of this. So the applicant added on an architectural condition to remedy that. Just a quick overview. The project went to the EAB in September of 2021, and the zoning conditions shown are the result of that meeting, or some of the zoning conditions shown. So for number 1, they're proposing an active amenity that includes mulch walking paths, a wildflower garden, community garden, or native pollinator demonstration garden. And then the landscaping proposed shall be selected and installed with trees, shrubs, and perennial species, with special attention being provided for diverse and abundant pollinator food and host plant sources, including plants that bloom in succession. In addition, the EAB requested that the amenity include at least 1 pet waste station in the area, and that any lighting installed within the amenity area use full cutoff LED fixtures with a maximum color temperature of 3000 Kelvin, and include light timers, motion sensors, or other technology of the kind. And again, that 3000 Kelvin is that warm yellow light that we like to see instead of that cool blue light. In addition, there's already a mail kiosk immediately adjacent to the proposed area. So with the applicant proposed to use that parking for the amenity courts, and staff is supportive of that. There were 2 conditions that the EAB recommended that staff could not recommend with this project, with this rezoning, and which are not included in this list. And those 2 conditions are that all homes are pre-wired for solar, and a minimum of 20 homes have solar PV systems installed at a minimum of 4 kilowatts, and recommending that the average HERS index for all homes in the development be a maximum of 60. So the second one is an energy efficiency standard. Currently 9 homes are required by the existing rezoning to have solar PV systems, and all of the homes are already required to be pre-wired. So planning staff did not recommend these conditions because the proposed amendment doesn't include any changes to the residential areas, or didn't include any changes to the residential areas at the time that the EAB meeting was held. And condition number 3 here, which essentially means that for this one lot only, lot 37, the garage is permitted to project 5 feet out from the front facade or front porch, as opposed to the 1 foot out that will apply to the rest of the lots. So that's the only change to anything in the residential area. And based on that, staff did not feel that the other 2 conditions that were recommended for the homes by the EAB were something that were proportional based on this amendment. So they were not included. The amendment for lot 37 was not required to return to the EAB. There's a section in the UDO that has some exemptions, and this one met the exemption saying that it would be to amend zoning conditions which have no environmental impact, including but not limited to architectural standards, building height, setbacks, and uses. So for that reason, when the when the 3rd condition was added, they did not have to go back to the EAB. Planning staff recommends approval of the rezoning as provided by the applicant. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Shelley. Did the applicant want to have any statements?
Yeah, although I do think I see a hand up from someone else.
Elaine?
Couple of questions for Shelley. Shelley, what is, if you could, tell me what an active amenity would look like? What does that mean exactly?
So it is fairly general language. And in this situation, what we've reviewed with the applicant is the provision of a combination of options. What we've seen from them is flower gardens with trails running through them, a gazebo area, and some possible smaller ball courts for things like pickleball or things along those areas, along with a grassy area where people could have picnics and that kind of thing. Because we recognize that people will have their grandchildren with them periodically, or that it might be an older adult who has a younger adult age child living with them, those kinds of situations. We wanted to make the language firm enough as far as the types of things that were required, but without necessarily getting in the way of ourselves when it comes time to review that more closely. It will not be 100% ball fields, if that's your concern, simply because they are required to have the garden area within that. And staff will have to review this as an exempt site plan with the applicant to ensure that all of these things are provided as well. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I do have one more question. If you could clarify for me, as far as the neighborhood meeting goes, do we include people that have signed contracts in the development, or just people that have closed?
To the best of my knowledge, the only ones who are notified are people who have closed at the time. Now, since Toll Brothers is the builder and they would also have the contract, they may have notified those people as well for their neighborhood meeting. I am not certain. I know that the town's list that we pull from is based on the recorded owner at the time that we pull that list from Wake County. We do also send in, well, and this wouldn't necessarily apply in the situation that you're referring to, but we do also notify all residents as well. But I don't know that that would make a difference in the situation you're referring to.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out if the, future owners who are under contract do get contacted about, these proposed amendments. That was my, my question.
Yes, ma'am.
So Elaine, that's not a requirement of the UDO or of state law for rezonings. We don't have access to that information. And so we notify those that are on record with Wake County Tax Assessor's Office as the owner of the property, as well as the current resident or tenant of the property, as well as the HOA.
Thank you.
All right. Does the applicant have any comments?
If this is the appropriate time, and good evening, Chair Skinner, Vice Chair Steele, and members of the Planning Board. My name is Neil Ghosh. I am an attorney with the Morningstar Law Group at 112 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm representing the applicant for this rezoning, Toll Brothers. Also with me tonight, I believe Peter Bellantoni with Toll Brothers is on, I think. But let me start first by thanking Ms. Mayo for her presentation of the case. I think she did a great job explaining the purpose of this rezoning. I think you all had a few of these lately. I would describe this as somewhat of a cleanup rezoning to address a few things that maybe were overlooked and just not thought of when the initial rezoning of the property. Let me start with what I think is the simplest one to explain. Lot 37. It's important to understand that this community already is well underway with construction. The house on Lot 37, I believe, is built, or at least it's under construction, but I think it's all the way built at this point. This is one of those cases where the plan that was approved for construction and the building permit that was issued contained a feature which on its face should not have been approved based on the zoning conditions. This, of course, refers to how far the garage protrudes forward from the front facade of the home. I believe the original rezoning condition limited this type of protrusion to no more than 1 foot, but the plan for Lot 37 was mistakenly approved and built with a garage that protrudes about 5 feet. Because we are rezoning the property to address other issues, it just makes sense to roll this issue into the rezoning so that we do not have a non-conforming lot for the rest of time. And I don't think there's really much more to say about that particular aspect. Now, the main purpose of the rezoning is to address the required play lawn. As I understand it, under the Apex UDO, play lawns are required to be basically a purposeful open field for playing. In general, this sounds like a great idea for most residential developments, but this particular community is an age-restricted community. I think a play field would be awesome for kids, and I'm sure some adults would use it as well. But we felt that we could provide a more meaningful and useful open space amenity in an age-restricted community than the required play field. So we're not seeking to shrink the overall required area of the play field. Instead, we are seeking to allow the play field to be developed with amenities rather than for it to remain a blank but usable field. Some of those amenities are spelled out in the proposed condition, but basically we envision a 3-season, call it, cutting garden for wildflowers, complete with walking trails. The amenity space may also include a gazebo, a bocce ball court, a fire pit, pickleball courts, that type of thing. And moreover, because we started this rezoning once the Environmental Advisory Board was in place, the revisions also include their requests, which we were happy to accommodate. Overall, we think this would be a better amenity package for an age-restricted community than a simple play field would be. And we look forward to your feedback and hope to have your support tonight with this endeavor. We're happy to address any questions you may have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Do any of the planning board members have additional questions for staff or applicant?
Hey, Chairman, I do have a question for Shelley. Shelley, this play lawn provision, the UDO, as a user of this system in Apex, I gotta say I don't love this provision because it's like one size shoe fits all. And this is a great example where you have an age targeted community and you have an active play lawn where maybe you're not going to have a lot of children. So the question I would have is, it's kind of twofold. One, are the other requirements of the play lawn, like the 2% flatness, are those still going to be enforced, or do we just scrap that and go with the conditions as proposed in the amendment here? That's my first question. And I'm more looking to protect the intent that I think the applicant is trying to do here. And number two, moving forward, is there a way that we could suggest as a planning board, perhaps that we could modify that provision of the UDO to be a little bit more encompassing for other types of residential developments, like age restricted or age targeted, where maybe they don't need a play lawn, and maybe we do a quid pro quo with like RCA or something that would benefit the town in another way, or the developer in another way, that could be mutually beneficial. So I'll leave it at that.
Sure. So your first question is, are the other requirements of the play lawn still going to be enforced? No, they will not. This is replacing that section entirely, since it'll be in approximately the same area that was identified on the plans. And that's the extent of it. What you see in front of you is what it will be replaced with. And that will actually help this site out quite a bit because there's a little more topography on it than we had originally expected there to be. And so my understanding is the landscape architects involved are planning to make some kind of nice meandering paths through there to make the most of the garden area. As far as your second question goes, typically age restricted, we can certainly talk about it as staff and try to figure out a way that would work best. But what we have tried to do is, since age restricted communities normally come to us as conditional zoning developments, they're not required to, but that's typically how we've seen them. The UDO can be trumped by the zoning conditions laid out. So when we did the original planned unit development zoning for this project, we could have included this section and trumped the play lawn, but I'll be completely honest, this was the first age restricted community in Apex, and we didn't think about it. Looking back now, as we get more age restricted developments, then I think that will become something that we look at more closely. As far as making a recommendation, I'm sure that's something that staff can look into, though. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? If not, I will open up the public hearing portion. Staff, do we have any comments?
We did not receive any comments ahead of time.
All right. In that case, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for any discussion or possible motion. And I guess, Amanda, keep me honest, the vote will actually be during a special meeting or no?
No, we can vote during this meeting based on recent changes to state law, so we don't need to have a second meeting.
Okay, great. So going back to the board, do we have any comments or motion? For
Chairman, I'll go ahead and I will go ahead and make a motion. I think this is very straightforward. The applicant's coming forward with a hardship, and it's making the community better, in my opinion, with the alternative use of the play lawn area as a amenity. And further, the lot 37 is a hardship, and I think, you know, it wouldn't do us any good to not support that, and the town's still getting the greenway in the end. So for those reasons, I don't have any problem with supporting 21 CZ 28 and making a recommendation for approval as noted in the staff report.
Thank you, Ryan. We have
This
a motion.
is Tina. I'll second that.
Tina will second.
This is Tina. I'll second. Mm-hmm.
All right. And I will go around for a full roll call. Reggie Skinner, yes. Mark Steele?
Yes.
Tina Sherman?
Yes.
Tommy Pate?
Yes, sir.
Tim Royal?
Yes.
Keith Braswell,
Yes.
Brian Akers,
Yes, sir.
Elaine Boyle,
Yes.
Jeff Hastings.
Non-voting again.
Thank you. Steve Rhodes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Jeff, I just want to keep you included, man.
No, I
right.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I believe there is no new business today. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
All right. I will need a motion and a second for adjournment.
This is Tim. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mark will second.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mark. All right. So let's go around and vote on that. Reggie Skinner, yes. Mark Steele,
Yes.
Tina Sherman,
Yes.
Tommy Pate,
Yes.
Tim Royal,
Yes.
Keith Braswell,
Yes.
Brian Akers,
Yes.
Elaine Boyle,
Yes.
Stephen Rhodes.
Yes.
All right. Sounds like we have an unanimous decision to adjourn. I
Awesome.
thank you, folks, for the January 21st planning board
Good
meeting.
job. Good job, Reggie, for chairing the first one.
Yeah.
They're all this short. I love it. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Nice and short. Yes.
All right. Happy New Year, everybody. Stay safe.
Happy New Year,
All right.
folks.
Take care,
Well,
guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks,